our adventure continues. In episode 2, today, it's all about castles. We called this the Castles Day. Our route begins in Merida, then heads toward Cortagana, through Almanaster La Rio, and finally to Aracena. Visiting the historic castles that dominate each of these towns. Day 3 began in Marita. We crossed the Guadiana River using the Lusitania Bridge, a modern structure designed by world-famous architect Santiago Calatrava. Riding through quiet countryside and passing small white villages along the way. Following the N435, we officially crossed into Andalusia, leaving Extremadura behind. Not long after, we arrived in the town of Cortagana, home to one of the region's most iconic castles. The castle of Cortagana was built in the 13th century, created to protect the border between Christian kingdoms and Moorish territories. We parked the bikes, took a group photo, and climbed up to the castle itself. From the top, the views stretched across the hills and surrounding countryside. That's when Dean took out his drone, capturing some incredible aerial shots of the castle and the town below. From above, you could truly appreciate why these fortresses were built here in the first place. After exploring the castle, we made our way back down and continued toward our next stop, the town of Almanaster. To get there, we rode along the HU 8105, a beautiful secondary road through the Huelva region. The road is narrow, technical, and incredibly enjoyable on a motorcycle. Very little traffic, endless curves, pure Andalusian countryside. Hidden in the hills of Andalusia, this small town is home to one of the most unique landmarks in Spain, the Mosque Castle of Almanaster. We entered the town with one goal in mind, getting all 8 motorcycles, all the way up to the castle. We rode through narrow stone streets, passing the main church, surrounded by whitewashed houses, typical of Andalusian mountain villages. The streets were tight and full of character. As we slowly made our way through the village, locals stopped to watch us pass. 8 adventure bikes through the narrow streets is not something they see every day. We turned left and right, but after a while, we realized something. We were lost. The village had turned into a maze. Until finally, a very kind local woman pointed us in the right direction. A quick conversation, a few hand gestures, and suddenly, we were back on track toward the castle. And just to be safe, we confirmed the directions with another local. Now, finally heading the right way, we began the climb toward the castle through the steep, narrow roads. Above us, the fortress slowly appeared. We finally arrived. We parked the bikes and decided to explore this ancient place from the inside. The Mosque of Almanaster, built during the 10th century, is one of the few rural mosques still preserved in Spain. Its location high above the village made it both a religious center and a strategic defensive point. If you made it up to here, don't forget to like the video. After exploring the inside of the mosque and seeing the small bull ring nearby, we left the village behind and continued on the HV 1201 route. Another narrow mountain road, surrounded by forests and rolling hills, perfect terrain for riding. Taking advantage of the twisting road ahead, Dean and I decided to have a little dogfight chase. KTM versus BMW. Curve after curve, accelerating out of corners, pushing hard through the mountains. A short race, completely enjoying the road. Moments like this are impossible to explain unless you ride. As we reached the small village of Gil Marquez, we slowed down and stopped to wait for the rest of the group. Soon after, we passed through the famous Rio Tinto Mines. Copper, iron, silver, and even gold have been mined here since ancient times, including by the Romans. The landscape feels almost unreal. Red-colored soil, orange rivers, and massive open-pit mines. Shortly before reaching Aracena, we passed by the Gasan Reservoir. What immediately caught our attention was the strange contrast in the water. One side showed a darker, reddish tone, while the other appeared much clearer. Then we finally arrived to Aracena. We climbed on foot to explore its 13th century castle. And with this last castle, we ended up the third riding day. Day 4 began in Aracena with a long ride ahead of us. Our route would take us through Seville, with several stops along the way, before finally ending in the magnificent city of Ronda. We took the N433 route. And along the way, we began spotting the famous Osborne Bowls. Today, around 90 Osborne Bowls still stand across Spain, watching over highways, hills, and open countryside. After that, we moved on to smaller roads. A very narrow two-way road with no center markings at all, just enough pavement for vehicles to pass carefully in opposite directions. Roads like this demand attention, especially on a motorcycle. But they also offer something better: less traffic, more scenery. Soon after, we connected with another beautiful secondary road cutting through the Andalusian countryside. Long sweeping curves and open views, the kind of road where you naturally settle into the rhythm of the ride. It was incredible to watch the line of motorcycles flow through the landscape, zigzagging and weaving through every curve and counter-curve of the road. Smooth, synchronized, and completely immersed in the ride. Eventually, we reached our first stop of the day. What made the place interesting was the strong contrast in watercolor between the main reservoir and the secondary basin downstream. One side appeared much darker, while the other showed a bright turquoise tone. A few of the more adventurous riders among us decided to go down and explore the secondary reservoir up close. To get there, we had to follow an off-road trail. It was covered in loose rocks and exposed stone, not exactly easy terrain. But in the end, it was absolutely worth it. The color of the water, the surrounding landscape, and the motorcycles parked near the shore looked incredible. From there, we captured some amazing aerial footage, the bikes, the riders, and the scenery. One of those moments that makes you stop and simply appreciate where you are. A few minutes later, we climbed back up through the same rocky trail where the rest of the group was waiting for us above. Probably wondering if going down there had really been a good idea. About an hour later, we arrived in the incredible city of Seville, our destination, the famous Plaza de España. Parts of Star Wars Episode 2 were filmed right here, using the plaza as the city of the moon. We were lucky enough to be present when flamenco dancers were giving a typical exhibition of this local culture. Leaving Seville behind, we picked up the A384 route, a faster road compared to the mountain sections earlier in the day. Soon after, we left the main road behind and turned onto the A2300, heading towards Zahara de la Sierra. One of the most beautiful white villages in Andalusia, surrounded by mountains, turquoise water, and dramatic scenery. Now we take a narrow mountain road, filled with curves, elevation changes, and incredible panoramic views. The closer we got to Zahara de la Sierra, the more dramatic the scenery became. By this point, we were starving, so we started looking for a place to eat. And completely by accident, we arrived at one of the most beautiful villagers we had ever seen. Filled with small restaurants and outdoor tables lining the narrow streets. Tourists from all over the world walk through the village. With the bikes parked, we finally had our lunch. With our stomachs finally full, we got back on the bikes and continued the ride. That meant descending through the village. The way down was using incredibly narrow and steep little streets. Honestly, we weren't even sure if attempting it was a good idea. But once again, it turned into one of the most memorable parts of the trip. Above us the entire time, the castle overlooked the village from the top of the mountain. And eventually, we finally reached a flatter, safer road again. We continued once again, now heading toward Rhonda. Throughout the ride, the Guadalete Reservoir dominated the landscape. Its blue water contrasted with the mountains and the white villages surrounding it. And finally, we made it to Rhonda. After checking into the hotel and somehow getting VIP parking for the bikes, we headed back out on foot to explore the city's most famous landmarks. The new bridge was built in the 18th century, connecting the old and new parts of Ronda. It's considered one of the most spectacular bridges in Spain. The perfect ending to another incredible day on the road.